Welcome, Sojourners, to the Women's Leadership Mindset Series. My name is Teresa Page. I am your host and looking forward to spending these next few moments with all of you. We have a lot of work to get done on today, but first, allow me to invite you to connect with me by subscribing to my website and YouTube channel. Connect and follow me on LinkedIn, and always feel free to contact me directly via email at teresakpagellc@outlook.com. So what is our goal? Well, as an author, speaker, coach, and mentor, my mission is to help professional women renew their leadership mindset with fresh fire and purpose through the mediums of leadership development and coaching services. However, the Women's Leadership Mindset Series is a new initiative intended to spotlight powerful women leaders and how they serve the world through their professions and purpose. So with the goal to help women realize their unfulfilled dreams and re-energize the leaders they always were, this platform is designed to enhance, empower, educate, equalize, and even emancipate, as our special guests share their entrepreneurial stories, provide valuable resources, and guidance in a caring, professional, and impactful manner. So, let's get down to business. Hi there, leaders. Thank you for joining me on today. Today, I want to utilize this solo episode as another opportunity to read a few more pages from the new edition of my book, My Journey to Wholeness, Love the Success Factor. I'm not going to start at the very beginning of the chapter today. I'm going to probably start right in the middle, but definitely believe that the information preceding it is just as powerful. What I love about this particular chapter is that this one is, while the entire book is for women, this one is specifically for the girls, because it really lays out about women and how we are wonderfully made as far as our anatomy, our brain power, our leadership abilities. But it also takes a few moments to talk about our responsibility and duty to champion our own equality, especially in a society where this far into the 21st century, whether here in our country or abroad, where there are real live active steps in our laws, in our world, that there's this campaign to take women backwards instead of forwards. I could get into a lot of conversation on today with some of the things that is happening, such as that has happened in our most recent history, such as the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and in certain other countries, regime changes that has taken away women's ability for education and their ability to work and to have means that subjects them to certain types of oppression and takes away their choices of how they're to navigate as an adult. Not just as a woman, but as an adult, as a citizen of countries, as an equal citizen of countries. And what I don't want to get on any soapboxes today or give too much energy towards any of these things while they're very important, but I will just have to say about this particular chapter of the book. This one is chapter 4. It's titled Love Is An Equalizer. Equality Begins With Me. At the time that I was actually creating this content, I was first creating the content that's within this book for the Women's Leadership Conference that I created back in 2021, when I first started out writing down all of the lessons that I learned during my purpose development phase, which I shared with you all in some of the previous episodes. And I never knew that when I was first creating this content in 2021, that just maybe 6 months later, how our Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade to take away certain federal protections away from women concerning their own health, and putting it in the hands of individual states to do with it as they choose. I never thought that we would live in this kind of world. I never thought that we would live in a world where the conversation of trying to get rid of contraceptives from women, or that the conversation about actually trying to turn back certain amendments of our Constitution that enables women to vote. I never thought that we would live in a world where there has been such an outward destruction of certain diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that would oust women, that would cut women out of the workplace. I never thought that we would live in a world where over 3.4 million women are unemployed in our country. And it's becoming more and more difficult for us to, and especially women who are educated and has a significant amount of career experience, and maybe a woman of certain age, that many of us would be put out to pasture to then try to find something that is of equal value and comparable to the compensation based upon our experiences and our education, so on and so forth. Who would have thought that this far into the 21st century, that instead of us pushing all of our sectors of segments of our citizenship, instead of making sure that there's a clear path for all of us, an equal path for all of us, regardless of our difference, that this would be the moment that we would try to go 50 years backwards. There could be certain discussions that I can have on today, but I'm not going to use this space for that. I just wanted you all to understand that chapter 4 of this book really does speak to women as far as how we're designed, as far as our anatomy and our brain power, and also what is so wonderful about us as far as natural born leaders, how effective we are, and the type of qualities that women possess automatically that make us great leaders. That's what I love so much about this chapter. Because at this particular during the purpose development process of my life just a few years ago, it was a real scary time, and I thought what makes this chapter so special is because during the scariest time of my life, one of the sweetest things that I believe that the Lord could have taken time to teach me was that as a woman, I am equal in dominion, that was his entire, that was his initial intent for the human family. And that as a woman, I am not a second class citizen, that I was gifted to mankind, that women were gifted to mankind as not just a helper, but as a remedy to help to help effectively carry out the assignment of dominion here in the earth, and to understand that a woman is built for it. I get that that through the ages, whether it was, regardless of whose agenda it was, but this idea of a stronger than, weaker than dynamic between men and women that at some point we must wrap our heads around the fact that the blessing of dominion is most powerful and can be most successful when there is an equal agreement between men and women, regardless of our relationship types. And I submit that should we ever course correct and men and women get on one accord together, we can abolish the dark influences of injustices and oppressions from the earth forever. But until that fateful day, until that day comes, we as women, we have to take ownership of our own equality. Our equality is our personal responsibility. And that may be a hard pill to swallow. But when we understand that we as women have to make certain decisions, that there are certain decisions that starts with us as far as where we choose to be, who we choose to do life with, what we choose to sign up for, that are personal decisions. If we could get better at that, we will begin to see a significant difference about how we're treated in the world. So today, as I always ask, I want you to not just listen with your ears, but also listen with your heart, because I want to talk about women taking ownership of our equality. So I'm going to read a few sections, which actually is midway of the chapter, which is fine with me. So listen with your ears as well as with your heart on today as I start with the section of chapter 4, which is titled Love is an Equalizer. Equality begins with me. And this is the section I'm going to start with, Women's Ownership and Equality. Women's Ownership and Equality. I believe the 21st century will be women's finest hour. We are breaking barriers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We are military warriors, we are Olympians, and for the first time in American history, we have broken the glass ceiling of the vice presidency of these United States via Kamala Harris. We are found leading in every aspect of our society and culture, yet as evidenced by movements that are rescinding of women's fundamental federal rights concerning their health and the resurgence of oppressive regimes around the world, there are still so many inequalities that have yet to be leveraged. It is hard to reconcile that here in the 21st century, women are still paid less on the dollar than our male counterparts in the same positions, still scrutinized more harshly for emotional expression in the workplace, still victims of abuse, sexual harassment, sex trafficking, and violent extremism, still bound by archaic impulses of men as to what we can or cannot do with our own bodies. The weight of this chapter has become a lot heavier for me because for many women around the world, equality truly is a matter of life and death. The plight of women's inequality on the global scale is so broad and overwhelming that we must take a different approach to narrow the spectrum and zoom into a more personal and organic space. So I want you to say to yourself, equality begins with me. Yes, equality starts with us, ladies. We may not be able to solve all of the global injustices or win at every relationship from a macro perspective, but we have the power and responsibility to leverage our own personal equality by actively guarding ourselves from superior and inferior influences, being cautious of anything or anyone that asks you to become less of who you are and capable of being, for it is a setup of slavery. Being cautious of anything or anyone that asks you to be more of who you are and capable of being, for it is a setup for idolatry. Being cautious of anything or anyone that speaks of submission more than love, for it is a setup for abuse. Find the courage to let go of anything or anyone that does not have the room for you to flourish at full capacity. The chokehold of inequality often takes place when we do not know who we are, what we are made of, or what we can do. We have been conditioned to romanticize the idea that there is glory in seeing ourselves as humble and lowly. I submit to you that there is no such glory. Such beliefs are highly misguided and have caused us to blow many kingdom opportunities because we have shown up in spaces dressed as servants, unsure of our worth. We are heirs and are expected to act accordingly, knowing that when we are sent into assigned territories, we are dispatched to render service as an express demonstration of the Lord's benevolence towards his people. So, how can we reconcile our personal equality to ensure that we are always ready to show up to kingdom opportunities, dressed appropriately as heirs? The simplest step is to be convinced of your own greatness. So now I want to skip down to the benefits of being convinced of your own greatness. When we take the time to diligently uncover our own greatness and personal value, we can finally come to terms with our distinct beauty, knowing that how we are made is on purpose and for a purpose. We can make better informed decisions and investments in our personal and professional relationships. We can preserve our most precious resources for those that truly mean us well. We can say no to those things that we do not believe in and courageously prune off what is no longer fruitful in our lives. We can make room to say yes to putting our abandoned desires and dreams back on the table as a top priority. We can lead and serve others in our domains of influence more efficiently and effectively. Ladies, we are in an extraordinary place in our history wherein we can no longer negotiate our way out of living at our fullest potential. Understanding the value of our model design, leadership qualities, personal inventory, and our assigned domains is no longer optional, it is mandatory. There are some bumpy roads ahead of us, and we must be fortified to navigate the rough terrains of the unknown. But contrary to popular beliefs, what is magical about women is that we are built for rough terrains, and the unknown is an open playground where we are our most creative. Let's move forward. So I believe I'll stop there today. There was a big section wherein, as far as practically how to be convinced of your own greatness, that I left out because this is a section that's pretty big and that is worth taking your time to go in and really truly study. But the section about being convinced of your own greatness details what we can practically do, whether in our prayer life to get a sense of wisdom and understanding as far as like what is our purpose, um, making rest a priority because rest is so important to help us to recall what is wonderful about ourselves and how it really does help us with creating new solutions or inventions for whatever it is that we need. This being convinced of your own greatness is also going to require taking stock in our personal inventory by making a diligent search of everything from our callings um, to our skills and our talents and so on and so forth. And this particular section also requires us to update maybe our resumes and our portfolios to update what we have learned about any of our technology proficiencies, any new skills that we have learned, any additional credentials that we may have earned in the educational space, or even professional developments and so on and so forth, and what that looks like and how to be able to get help if you need help with that. And also being able to take an assessment. There's actually an assessment here to assess whether you're in your rightful place so that you can fully operate in all of your giftings, that you're in your rightful place of influence. And so you'll see a series of questions for you to ask yourself so that you're able to make a decision on if you need to make changes or if you can remain where you are and find other opportunities. So that's why I kind of skipped over that part, but I wanted to get directly to the benefits of being convinced of our own greatness and what it will allow us to do. And when we take stock and inventory and start asking ourselves questions, and again, it helps us to make better informed decisions. It helps us to understand where to allocate all of our resources. It helps us to understand what we can say no to and giving us room for the things that we really want to say yes to. It does help us to be able to lead more effectively. So being convinced of your own greatness, I think is what's really important to leveraging our own equality. Because when we understand a little bit more about who we are, it then helps us to decide who we bring into our lives and what we choose to be around. I truly believe that as I have gotten older, if I was this girl when I was younger, if I was this type of woman when I was younger, there would be plenty of situations I would not have been involved in. There would have been plenty of rooms that I would not be in. There would be a lot of people that would have never made it into my space if I understood me. But when we don't understand ourselves, anything can happen. And we're not as intentional. So while the world has put a big stamp of approval as far as us being accepted by others, and while that is important and it has a place, we have not put a lot of energy, and neither is there a lot of curriculum that requires us to learn who we are as an individual, where that it becomes top priority. Because when that becomes top priority, then we can decide we put ourselves in our rightful places once we know who we are. And maybe that's just something we have to grow into. And maybe that's just a part of the journey of life. So I would just say, ladies, I think we need to be a little more accountable about the decisions that we make for ourselves. We are emotional creatures, and that is to our benefit. It's not to our detriment, as has been presented. The question is, are we listening to our emotions? When they speak up, if something is not right, if your emotions have figured out that something is not right, we have a responsibility to listen to that. And if you need more research, then gather more intel. If something feels right and it causes a rise out of you, we have a responsibility to at least to investigate it, to see what it is that we need to lean into, or what is it that we need to adjust in our lives So no, I will not discount us being emotional creatures. That is our superpower. That is our superpower. And that's actually what makes us better at analyzing and coming to conclusions. Our intuition. We want to call it women's intuition, whatever you want to call it, it's fine. Semantics. But our emotions are given to us to help us to navigate successfully in the world. I think the challenge comes in is that when we feel something, we have a responsibility to look into it and not to dismiss it, to say, oh, that's just my emotions. Our emotions are an alarm system of some sort. Not always that you're in danger, but it's also an alarm system to also say, hey, you're on the brink of something, girl. Let's look into this. Or this may lead you to your purpose. Or this may open up to a bigger door. But to discount our emotions is a bailout on ourselves, that we don't trust what we feel. And there are certain things in our society that leans on that depends on that, in an effort to oppress us in one way or another. But I just declare, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that the 21st century is still women's finest hour, regardless of what our laws try to do, what rights are trying to be rescinded. We have a responsibility. The 21st century is still women's finest hour. And for those women who are in the workplace or who's back out into the job market and may find it difficult because certain systems have said that women of a certain age, that you're no longer viable or either you're too expensive. Let me tell you something, ladies. We need to take what the Lord has given us. There are certain ideas that we have put on the back burner because we were working a 9 to 5. There were certain things that would propel us in a particular area, but we put it on the back burner because we may have been raising children or we had a family to raise. If you're now in a particular space right now where you have the awesome opportunity, instead of us panicking, let's take the combination of the experiences that we have gained, take all of that, create a strategy where you combine that with your life's purpose to create something brand new. And for many of us, that might be a business. For many of us, that might be a nonprofit organization. For many of us, that might be a ministry. For many of us, that might be a certain type of programming. For many of us, that might be writing a book. For many of us, that might be writing a play or a movie. For many of us, regardless of what that is, we have the power to be able to create our own economy. That is the power of being convinced of your own greatness. So gather all of that which you have learned. Do some internal research of what is your initial purpose if you haven't stumbled into it yet, to see what is next. And strategize that and bind it together to create something brand new and innovative. We need it now more than ever. We need fresh ideas so we could be forward moving, not where it's going to regress us. I believe that there are spaces in chapter 4 that's really going to help you to take some assessments. It's really going to cause you to pause and take a deep dive into yourself. And I think this is really going to be important. So if you did not know, My Journey to Wholeness, Love to Success Factor, the new edition, in addition to the reference guide workbook, they are both now available on Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble. And I'm really excited to share that I'm also working on getting it onto Ingram Sparks. So you'll be able to see that information in the bio. And listen, also mark your calendar. I am working on bringing Love the Success Factor Women's Leadership Conference to an in-person space. So I was working on that. So tentatively, we're looking at dates either in February or in March of 2026. So I want you to stay tuned. If you're not subscribed to Teresa K page, .squarespace.com, I encourage you to go ahead and get connected. You'll see the information in the bio, so you can stay subscribed so that you're in the know for upcoming dates when I finally get all of that solidified. But Love the Success Factor Women's Leadership Conference is for coming into 2026. In the first quarter of 2026, we're looking to do something in person and to make this a wonderful immersive experience so that you're able to come and let's really do a deep dive as far as this love and leadership perspective. Whether you intend to be an entrepreneur or if you're just wanting to gain information to propel you in your career, or if you just need to be re-energized to the leader within, to be reconnected with that so you can keep running on in the space that you're in. This is an opportunity to be rejuvenated, not just in knowledge, but actually to kind of wind down and to enjoy the space that you're in. Good food, good fellowship, coming together to synergize with new ideas. That's the experience that I really want to be able to create, and that everything that you need can be taken care of on location. So I want to say thank you for tuning in. Enjoy yourselves. Take stock in your personal inventory and come out of that space with being ready to create something brand new and innovative, because we need you. And there's something that you were sent in the world to do that only you can do. And we're waiting for you. So until next time, here's to the journey, and let's move forward.